is the fact that his younger brother also was being sexually assaulted as well. And he came forward and brought it up to his brothers as well and said, this happened to me. And he brought up to his brothers, and the fact that his brothers, R. Kelly included, both said to him, no, it never happened to you, then that meant to him like he couldn't bring it up to anyone older to take it any further. But like the starting point was him telling his brothers didn't believe him, so no one older than he believed that no one above his brothers was going to believe him.
But
sad,
denial.
Yeah.
Denial's often a way people will deal with trauma and abuse. Like I think, I don't know, there's some science behind it. I can't remember exactly what, but you often do block traumatic experiences out.
Yeah.
It's a way of your brain dealing with it at the time. So I guess often to the point where people do make themselves believe that thing didn't happen. They'll forget huge events. So that's probably part of it. But also then if R. Kelly and whoever he told were then enacting that same behaviour, then of course they don't want to address it and draw attention to it, because it then draws attention to what they're doing. But the root of it all is essentially patriarchy and power play, and I think that's another thing that needs to be looked at and understood in order for things to be resolved as well. Breaking down that like power imbalance and understanding how it exists, where it exists, how it works, in order to break it down to stop it from working anymore.
Would something like more females in higher positions help?
Well, of course, that's something that's like, that's already, some companies are trying to, make that change, but I think that's definitely a big factor, role models and having women in positions of power, and then the positive knock-on effects from that. But it's much more than just that, I think, and I think we need to also recognise that patriarchy does, although it appears to serve men and benefit men, and yes, obviously it does a lot of the time in terms of they get paid more and their negative behaviour is excused, and I could go on and on, but actually it doesn't help them, and I don't think it's, in what way, I think the fact that suicide is the biggest killer of men under 40, I think that's no I don't think that is a, again, what's the word? A
statistic that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's the... Yeah. When you just have a mind blank, it's like, it's a simple word that sums up what I'm trying to say, but I can't think of that simple word. I don't think there's no coincidence that suicide is the biggest killer of men under 40. That is, I think, quite clearly linked to patriarchy and the expectations of boys and men, and this whole boys will be boys mentality, boys don't cry, this bravado that they're supposed to have, I think all leads to the violence, like physical and verbal violence, and the fact that men aren't supposed to express apparently express their emotions. So all these suppressed emotions and anger comes out in unhealthy forms, and when men do have difficult events in their life, they don't know how to deal with it, and instead of dealing with it in a healthy way and speaking to people about it, they will, bottle it up to the point where the bottle explodes and they can no longer live life. And that is all stemming from patriarchy and what a man is supposed to do and what a woman is supposed to do.
I had like an interesting conversation about this on New Year's Eve. It was about the fact that it's kind of funny that men don't teach other men how to talk to women.
Yeah.
You kind of grow up, and then it's kind of a thing that's a given that you should know, and if you don't know, then you're kind of ostracized and taken the piss out of. So then you don't actually, but that doesn't help the problem. It just kind of beats us down and doesn't help you learn anything. So then,
well, because you often learn from what you see.
Yeah.
Or isn't again coming back to communication and it being not just verbal. You will learn from the way you see your father or uncle or brothers or friends treat other people, and you will copy that behaviour.
Yeah.
So if that behaviour that you're seeing isn't healthy behaviour, then it's just going to carry on.
Of course, yeah. Well,
or if you don't have those examples there, then you will find examples somewhere. But and I think so going back to patriarchy being not effective for men as well, we need to get rid of this idea of men being strong and brave and this whole like caveman mentality, like it's 2019, we don't need you to physically go out and hunt and be like physically uber strong, like we need you to be emotionally and mentally strong and emotionally and mentally intelligent. That's what we need for you to be, in order for society to work more effectively and relationships to work well, and then the next generation to be to not have these same issues that we have.
But it feels like,
and that's
issues, it's kind of got worse, and then it's kind of come to a point where more people, it's coming out more now. But like before this point of Me Too and all these people being called out for it, it was just happening. And I guess to everyone else, because it wasn't publicized or such a big issue in the society at the time, it was kind of ignored. And I feel like it's always been there, and it's
for sure.
And it's like it should be something that should be kind of dying out, like, but it's continuing. So, like you said, we can only hope that the next generation can kind of learn from how fucked up we have been.
Yeah, essentially. Great line to summarise it. But that is the mission. That's what it comes down to.
How we achieve that.
So be aware of the way you act around your mates and younger people around you, teenagers, kids.
And if you see something not right, speak up about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I just had a deja vu.
Really?
I've been here before.
No, you haven't. It feels like it.
No, yeah, generally.
Maybe you've been having this conversation before. Hopefully you have been having these conversations.
Yeah, possibly.
What was I gonna say? But yeah, shall we? I mean, I wrote a piece last night whilst I was sort of half falling asleep, connected to this topic.
She texted me at 3 a.m. in the morning, I was still awake.
Yeah, I'd fallen asleep and then I woke up at that time. So yeah, that's why you got that late response. 3 a.m. The creative mind, like I literally woke up and then had this unfinished poem, and then my mind was awake and I had to carry on.
That's why I couldn't sleep last night.
So maybe we should finish off with, maybe I could read this piece and then we conclude with our solutions. Revisit this solution.
Can I give you a small little interview at the end to feel more of a happy note?
Has this not been an interview?
I know, we were just talking about sexual harassment.
Yeah, I know. You mean just a general chat? Yeah, we can do that. Totally, we can do that. For sure. Yeah, and end on a positive note. Yeah. Leave the people happy.
Yeah,
Leave the people, with lots of food for thought, but also a positive note. No, I feel that. So this piece I wrote, literally last night. I've not edited it. I've barely even read it back. So yeah, it's not in its final form.
Well, looking forward to it freezing.
So here we go. I've got like two pieces. I don't know whether they like go into. It could be like one really long piece or two separate pieces, or I'll just do. Let me just see how I feel, and if I don't like it, I'll get you to edit it out. It's called Hungry.
Okay.
We know Mama fed you well. Your belly never went hungry. Always seconds in the pot, you tell us of those tales with forever fond thoughts. We know Mama fed you well. Your belly never went hungry. Raised on respect and manners, you'd never grumble. She taught you the strength and tenacity and humble. Why then? Why then do you devour us with your eyes? Undress us with your smirks and baby way up, day or night? None of these words and actions come as a surprise, and that is what is harrowing. Call it a horror movie, call it daylight robbery, every time you try to move to we, when we never gave you such signals. You are well versed in body counts, body language, so why do you keep choosing to get your wires crossed? Keep choosing to pretend the signal's lost. We know it's all for your single cause. Your self-proclaimed right to bear witness to every woman being beneath you, unless you want her riding on top. The patriarchy taught you so well, honey. Wouldn't Mama be proud of how her son laughs at a woman every time her body shouts, no? Every time he touches places he doesn't own, every time he rings the alarm bells and the doorbell knows that what happens behind closed doors will eventually seep out. Excrement can't be held in airtight containers, so let's call moments like this, poems like this, songs and marches that cry out and sing like this, let's call them taking the dog out, taking the trash out, Let's call them burning misogyny at the stake, like all the so-called witches, our ancestral sisters you once burnt